traffic there. Last there, just take it up to the departure end of the runway, then a left turn and a lowest downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, at or beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land at or beyond. Traffic on the left face, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed. There you go. Go, 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 go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final. You're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold. Take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final, runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right, let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
Oh, we had one right in front of us, sir.
Dragger. Let's see. Well, we got a tricycle. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger, down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here. You clear to land on 9 all the way to the white dot. Go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway, and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern, or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers, go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. You do not descend. Do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. There you go. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. You can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. Clear to land on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow follow on the final, and as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to re-sequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around too. I just lost sight of him, but you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here, so just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in sight.
Okay, the RV, maybe an RV-10, whatever's here on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around. Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that. After 35 years, you would think, right? All right. So let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. Keep it airborne. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. Put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Hello. Three, two, one.
Hello! That worked out really well, actually. It's kind of like... brilliant. Hello and welcome, everybody, and to this absolutely stunning, gorgeous day, which is why we're kind of sitting here with airplanes outside. Here we go, flying later. It's absolutely beautiful and lovely, and thank you for joining us. Now, there's a few new names in the people out there at the moment, and I suspect they're here to see Paul Beaver. Paul's sitting in the green room waiting. We're just going to run through, just so you know, if you haven't seen this before, we're going to run through a bit of weather, a bit of SkyDemon tip, bit of news, and then we'll get out to Paul probably around something like 5 to 8 o'clock. So if the only thing you're interested in is Paul, it's a good time to go and get yourself a cup of tea or a nice little cooling shandy or something. Anyway, on that basis, I'd like to say hello to everybody if I haven't said it already. And here is your SkyDemon tip of the week.
Hi, I'm Rob from SkyDemon, and here's another top tip.
While you're flying with SkyDemon, editing the route is locked, but you can unlock it to do the rubber banding feature by giving a leg a quick tap, bringing up a little label. While that's on the leg, you get one free rubber band, and then the route is locked in place again. To do it again, tap the leg again. You can do this as many times as you like.
For more information, check out our website, www.skydemon.aero.
There you go. Simple. Just remember.
Annabelle says, check out how dapper Rob was. And Annabelle's like, oh, how about flyer waistcoats? Very smart.
That's a great idea. Imagine us all in matching waistcoats. Or maybe we should have matching high-vis tabards or whatever they call it. No, that's a bad idea, isn't it? And obviously, I forgot to say before, so thank you very much, SkyDemon. Okay, now I think it is. I haven't got my running sheet here, so I can't see that, but I'm pretty sure we go to the weather next. Is that right?
It's definitely
weather next. We're gonna have to do a little bit of funny screeny type stuff here, so let's just add in young Simon, see where he goes. He goes nowhere, so we'll move over to this layout, and there's Simon.
I like the young bit.
Let me do that, and there you go.
Do you think Rob was going for an interview? He got his little waistcoat on there, looking very smart, wasn't he?
Oh, he turns up. He turns up to work every day in a 3-piece suit.
I bet he does. Very dapper.
He just takes it off.
Very dapper. They're smart down at SkyDemon, aren't they? Let's see.
Yeah.
They're put to shame. Okay, so a bit of weather. Are you warm enough, chaps?
Is it Scorchio?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a scorcher, hasn't it? We're. I was just looking across Europe. We're warmer than many airports across Europe at the moment, and the warm air looks set to last as well. Although I think the weather has decided just to be very lazy this weekend and almost repeat the weather of last weekend and sort of just do it all again. So there are some thunderstorms around, and they're really going to gradually get going through tomorrow, through Saturday and Sunday, but I'll show you that on the charts here. So what have we got? Well, first up, Friday. High pressure still off towards the east on Friday. You can see actually through tomorrow, most parts of the country are free from any precipitation. It's going to be generally clear, it's going to be dry, it's going to be fine, good for flying, just a little bit warm once again. And rule of thumb that I tend to work on is that temperatures above 25 degrees are going to give you some pretty bumpy conditions, moderate turbulence. Above 30 degrees gets severe. Obviously there can be other weather factors at play as well, but on those temperature levels, 25 plus, moderate turbulence is expected, and that's what we'll get across central and eastern areas tomorrow. Now, as tonight, could be a few thunderous showers just breaking out across parts of Wales, possibly parts of southwest England, possibly parts of southwest Scotland late on Friday, but these will be fairly well spaced out. But notice out here across Ireland, all getting a little bit more complicated. And if you look at the ceiling forecast, these are the cloud ceiling forecasts. Notice these yellows and the amber and the red colours starting to come in, indicating more widespread cloud there. And that's slightly more mixed weather coming in. Now, through Saturday, we start off okay. Maybe a little bit of mist first thing Saturday across central and eastern areas. That will lift and clear. And for most, it looks like Saturday actually is going to be a decent sort of day across central and eastern parts. However, once again, you see here these green blobs starting to get going. These are thunderstorms that get going on Saturday afternoon. And a trough, that dashed line here, just across southern England, starting to move in again wanting to trigger some thunderstorms through southern England. I think they'll be fairly well scattered, but I think there'll be more of them across northwest England, southwest Scotland, and certainly across Ireland. Typical bases, well, in these systems, about 3,000-4,000 feet, tops up at about 20,000-25,000 feet. Although, by contrast, towards the east, virtually no cloud at all. What cloud there is, 4,000 foot bases, 8,000 foot tops. Now, get set for Sunday, because look at that one. Another thundery look to things on Sunday. Troughs, fronts, you don't really need to understand these too much to know that that all looks a bit of a mess. So I think we're going to be finding pretty widespread thunderstorms across many parts of southern, central, western parts of England, Wales, Ireland, southwest England as well on Sunday. Actually, Scotland and eastern England not looking too bad, probably holding out there until the afternoon. But then we'll find thunderstorms trying to track northwards and eastwards during the latter part of the day. So Sunday not looking particularly brilliant. I think Friday and Saturday are the pick of the days. We'll talk lots about thunderstorms at Aviation Weather School. I've just announced my next classroom-based Aviation Weather School. This will be the first one after the summer, which is going to be on Saturday the 16th of September. It's booking up already, so if you want to come along, go to weatherschool.co.uk and book your place now, and you get to spend the day with me. Lucky you. Can you think of anything better? I'll start making a list. Right, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week, guys. Bye for now.
Thanks very much, Simon.
Cheers, Simon.
So, what do you do? Let's get back to that. So that's almost right. Hey.
There we go. Oh, no.
You have control.
That was me.
Too many Mac operators spoil the properly. Okay, brilliant. Do you see that rain on Sunday? That looks a bit grim, doesn't it?
It does look
quick. I think Simon said and thunderstorms tonight, but I think he meant Friday night.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty unthunderstorm-like
Matt
here.
Lanham says, woo, Scotland better off for a change.
Apparently so. Right, Johnny, hit us with the old landing benefit stuff.
Yeah, so I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, watching are Flyer Club members. And if you're not, you can join at flyer.co.uk/membership. We've got some great free landing vouchers this month, which are, I have to look over at another screen, Eggersford, Clench Common, Beverley, Donegal and Fishburn. So there's a great mix of airfields all across the country that you can land at for free this month. And we've got some good ones coming up next month. So thanks to Poolies for sponsoring those. And of course, for £5 a month or 52 quid for the whole year, that's your Flyer Club membership, and you get access to landing vouchers every month, all of the content we produce. And there's all sorts of other great things like webinars every month. The one we've just had was all about float plane flying, which was fascinating, from folks up in Scotland. And we've got more coming up next month. And yeah, generally it's just a good way to save money when you're flying, improve your flying with access to experts who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about. We've got a back catalogue of webinars from everything from weather from Simon through to UPRT from Mark Greeners down at Goodwood and lots more. So yeah, join the Flyer Club, £52 a year or £5 a month.
Absolutely. My favourite, it's called Clench Common. Really?
Nick Allen says, is it Clench Common because the runway is extremely short?
How short is it? I don't know.
Is it 400 metres?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Answer in the comments if you know.
Yeah, my favourite comment from the webinar on Tuesday about the float plane flying was talking about on the very rare occasions they take a float plane onto salt water, like open harbour and stuff like that. So when you take it there, you can, if it's really quiet, you can almost hear it fizzing as the aeroplane's. Clearly not quite, but you know what I mean. Right, let's move on to some news so we can get to Paul Beaver. Dave, what have you got for us?
Right, well, you may remember that Tayside Aviation, the flight school up in the northeast, Tayside Aviation went bust earlier this year, and many of its students who are training for professional pilot courses lost a lot of money. So did, of course, the people who invested in the company in the first place. Now it appears that the people who bought the company, a company called ARB Aviation, led by a Scottish entrepreneur called Tony Banks. Tony Banks, they're taking legal action against the previous owners who they bought the school off. That's Jim Watt and his wife Kathleen. We can't say too much about this because it's all legal stuff. but it's just happening. We don't know where it's going to go. It's going to get possibly a bit messy, but I'm going to stop there.
There's been a not talking about Tayside in particular, but effectively Tayside and obviously more recently FTA at Shoreham have closed with students losing money, and then previous to that BCFT, although when that closed at Bournemouth, that no students lost any money there, and so that was a good thing. But there's a whole load of people getting together and trying to, this kind of happens as a bit of a cyclic thing in the industry, and despite people being told not to pay up front and certainly not to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds up front, people still do, and there's a move to try and get that sorted once and for all, though whether it will happen or not, who knows. It's the right thing to happen. But I just going back to that picture, do you think that's how they train? Do you think you do like formation fuel sampling or something?
I think that's an RAF cadets, because Tayside Aviation did some flying for RAF cadets, didn't they?
Number 3, your prop is not aligned properly.
Yeah. I don't believe that's an everyday scene.
No. Okay. Right. Who's got the next story? It's probably on a little sheet behind this window here. Oh, that's me. So this story is about a consultation that's going on around Stapleford in support of the approaches that are being applied for. Basically, that's a pretty busy piece of airspace, and the proposal is, so there are 4 different proposals. One of them, and the one that I suspect is the one that is favoured by the proposers, is this RMZ, radio mandatory zone. Basically, if you kind of read the story, there's a whole bunch about, we want to make sure that this people know and these people know, and Stapleford Radio getting really busy, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, any non-radio aircraft can kind of still get through, but they've got an even smaller gap over built-up area there than they had before. But I guess the question is, how do you fit in approaches that are done without full air traffic in an area that's seriously busy to the sort of northeast of London, southeast of the country, and all kind of squashed by the London airspace above it and stuff like that. It's a toughie. It's a consultation that some people have said cynically is hard to find. We got a link to it in the news story, so go take a look, take a read, and make your thoughts known. I kind of think, and on a kind of similar note, I think it's time to celebrate that today. In fact, the approaches went live at Sherburn in Elmet. So fantastic achievement there. It's only taken 150 years and £2.3 billion, and they're in. So well done, those people.
A link to the RMZ story in the comments.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing about that RMZ, which I forgot to include in the story, is that a couple of the airstrips that are based in that area of Essex, one called Willingale in particular, if it goes through, they will have to call up before they take off, because they'll be immediately into the RMZ. The problem is they can't actually get a good signal there at the moment for Stapleford, so they're kind of wondering what's going to happen if they can't get a call in before taking off. I guess that's all going to be go through the wash.
How many non-radio actually left these days in that part of the world?
But
on the flip side of that, Jonathan Smith says, not much of a rant for complete madness at Stapleford.
Jonathan, if you'd like to come along and rant, or if you'd like to pre-record a rant, mate, we ought to do that as a service, A pre-recorded rant. Like anyone who wants to rant, you can have 30 seconds to record your rant. That's all I ever take.
There's a podcast there.
It could be the flyer. Rate my rant.
Rate my rant. Ah, brilliant. Yes, absolutely fantastic. Well, Jonathan, you could be the first. We might even give you a minute.
Claire B says the Tiger Club. Yeah, possibly a good point. Well, actually, a good point.
What, the Tiger Club don't have?
I guess they might have. Yeah, Claire. Are there some members of the Tiger Club? Possibly the Turbulence. No radio.
Yeah.
So.
It's an interesting question, and say.
Rate my rant, brilliant idea.
Rate my rant.
30 seconds, nowhere near long enough, apparently.
Okay. No one wants to rant for more than a minute, do they?
No.
So anyway, let's move on to the next story. See if we can't rant about that. What is the next story? Let's have a quick look up here on my little sheet.
More electric.
More electric. So this is not so much eVTOL as eStol. So this is about a US company called Electra.Aero. Just ahead of the Paris Air Show, they're unveiling a full-scale technology demonstrator for their hybrid electric ultra-short takeoff and landing aircraft. This is something called eSTOL. It's a few people are experimenting in this category. Electra's eSTOL demonstrator is said to be the world's first blown lift aircraft using distributed electric propulsion. And they say that it means that they can take off in the aircraft will be able to take off and land in short spaces, like 300 feet short spaces. It uses 8 motors to provide additional wing lift and hybrid electric power that provides internal recharging capabilities for the aircraft batteries. Eliminating, surprise from a pheasant, eliminating the need for ground infrastructure. This 2-seat piloted aircraft will be flown this summer, and that will inform the design of Electra's planned 9-passenger aeroplane, which is coming in the future. That aircraft they're hoping will fly in 2025 and enter service under and be certified in time for 2028. So we'll see.
So the Paris Air Show, do you think, which kicks off next week, doesn't it? Do you think there's a special area for unicorns?
Yes. Yeah. I guess.
Well, I think the Paris Air Show specialises in unicorns, doesn't it? I mean, I've been there, seen quite a few in the Airbus stand.
Yeah. Andrew Kennedy says, "Are model aeroplane propellers cheaper?" I guess they are. Wait, yes.
Until they become certified.
Until they're certified. Yeah. 8 engines better than 1. Yeah.
Good point. Right, Johnny, your story next, although bizarrely, I definitely uploaded a picture to go with it, and it's definitely not here now, which is weird. So you'll just have to imagine some people standing around a Cessna in yellow jacket.
Yeah, so Flying Scholarships for Disabled People are doing the second leg of their big wing tour tomorrow. So they're aiming to visit over 40 airfields around the country this month, as it's their 40th anniversary. They provide scholarships, and they've helped over 400 disabled adults across the country get some form of flying training. They were set up in 1983 in celebration of the life of Sir Douglas Bader by Paul Bowen and Tim Prince, who are both founders of the Air Tattoo at Fairford. And they're taking this tour around all parts of the UK. They were flying on Wednesday up into Scotland. And then tomorrow's tour was going to be starting at Gloucester, heading to Kemble, and then other places like Haverfordwest, Cardiff, Welshpool. I'm probably going to miss a few, but basically sort of West Country Wales. So if you're around at any of those airfields, do keep an eye out. We do have a news story on the website with times and locations. So if you do want to go out there and meet people, you can absolutely do that. So yeah, it's gonna. I'll probably try and make it to Kemble first thing tomorrow. So if anybody's around, we might bump into you there. So yeah, it's a good. Also, go and visit fsdp.co.uk. They do some great work for people. And we had a very good chat with the chair, Guy Bowen, a few weeks ago. It was a very moving and interesting interview with him.
Yeah, it was.
Cool. And then obviously you got the a little bit for which I do have pictures of the French tour, the French microlight tour. No, you're supposed to. Okay. also going on, there's a large contingent of French microlight pilots flying around the UK. They've been as far north as Wick, and I think they're currently in Bodmin. And there are lots and lots and lots of them all over. It's a really. There was 3 pictures. Strangely, there were 2. I reckon that pheasants nicked them or something.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was they actually bought. I mean, there are large numbers, so you can kind of understand it. But the vans came along and actually bought all of the catering stuff with them. So kind of at each stop they got their own catering, which I think is quite funny. But I mean, on the other hand, if you've got 30 or 40 people, you've got to try and find restaurants for every night. It's
I can understand why they've done that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I completely missed that bullet point.
That's all right. Ian's got your back.
That's okay, Johnny. I've sent you a written warning while I was on. Anyway, right. So, Dave, tell us: is there an airport in the Isle of Wight about to get more complicated?
Well, it might do. It probably will do. Actually, it's Britain Norman who are, to use a phrase, repatriating the Islander, the manufacturing of the Islander. They're bringing it back from Romania, where it's been for successfully, you have to say, for many years. and they're going to manufacture the aircraft in the Isle of Wight at Bembridge, which is the original home. The reason for doing that is that there's a renewed interest in the Islander, but also, of course, Britten Norman and Cranfield Aerospace Solutions are planning a merger. It's been announced, and the merger's going ahead. And as that's all swirling around in there is a hydrogen fuel cell powered Islander. So I guess they really want to bring everything in-house, so they've got more control over it. But it's a good news. It's bringing back aircraft manufacturing to the UK. Although we manufacture a lot of bits, we don't manufacture many whole aircraft.
Yeah. Do you know what scares me about that?
I have no idea.
It's the involvement of a company with Cranfield in the name, working, possibly getting involved in running the airfield at Bembridge again. At the moment, it's really easy to use and really relaxed and very simple. And I don't know if you remember back to the days when Britten Norman were there. There was at one point there was a security guard that was a bit strange, and there was pathways you had to walk in to go around the outs. It was like, how can you take a bloody little airfield in the middle of nowhere on the Isle of Wight and make it awkward? They're kind of vying with Cranfield and Alderney. Ridiculous stuff. Talking of which, I'm going to jump in here and say yesterday I was at Kitty Hawk. Now that is how a nice little grass strip should be run. It's like super relaxed, super easy, and it's got a fantastic website that makes all of the information you want, getting your PPR, paying your landing fee, super easy. So, yep, Kitty Hawk. If anyone wants to know how it's done, go take a look at the Kitty Hawk Farm website, and then go visit as well. It's a nice place. Anyway, Johnny, do you know anything about the next story you've got, or have you missed that one as well?
Some big air show in Paris. So Paris Air Show opens its doors in a few days. So obviously there'll be hundreds of thousands of people heading there. Had a quick look through the confirmed aircraft flying list. So for Monday, you've got the likes of the A400M, F-35, Falcon 6X, the Dassault Rafale, and then the Velis Electro. So there's a whole mix of full spectrum of military hardware, and then the nice bit of GA thrown in.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's on. Yeah, it should be interesting. And then also further on in the week, I think from Thursday, you've got the Volocopter. So we should get some interesting pics and video coming out of Paris next week.
Very good. I'm supposed to be flying to a birthday party in Paris next weekend, and I've just
realised that there might be some overlap.
I've just realised that there may well be another one of those huge restrictive bits of airspace. I'll have to go and take a look and see what they're planning for that.
Quite possibly. Shall I wrap up the news?
Wrap up the news, Ed.
Excellent. And this is the news that. So last week we mentioned that the CAA's got a survey out for CO monitoring. We bumped into the CAA's Alex Blomley at Aero Expo, and she said, "We're not obsessed with monitoring carbon monoxide." Talking about in response to a news story that we ran last week. But Alex did say, she said, they really see CO as something that they can make a difference with. So they're genuinely interested in collecting the data. So I've stuck the link in the comments. If you haven't taken their survey, please do. They feel it's one of those that there's some differences that they can hopefully inform and inspire on. So,
is there actually anybody who thinks that active carbon monoxide detectors are bad ideas?
Getting gassed is a bad thing.
Generally.
Modern detectors are really good and quite reasonably priced.
Hands up if you think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, no.
You need Okay.
There we go.
Brilliant. Right. I think that wraps up the news just about. We got some event stuff coming up at the end, so stay tuned for that. Let's see if we can figure out how we can bring in Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hang on. Oh, he's muted. Hang on a moment, Paul.
Can you unmute yourself?
There we go.
There you go.
He's unmuted. You're good? Hang on. There we go.
Now you're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Greetings, everyone. How nice to join
Paul,
you.
Thanks for joining us. So for those who don't know, tonight's guest, Paul Beaver, is an aviation historian, broadcaster, writer who specialises in the 30s and 40s, and he's done everything from editor-in-chief of Jane's Defence Weekly to war correspondent on Sky News. But of the 40 or so books that Paul has written, He's here tonight to really talk about one of them, which is Winkle, which Dave is holding up there, for which Paul had access to all sorts of unseen documents and pretty much all of Winkle's own personal archive. So, Paul, thanks for joining us. And just begin by telling us a bit about how your connection to Winkle Brown began.
Oh, Johnny, thank you. That's it's a 40-year connection. So I first met him back in the late 70s. I was decided I would write a book about HMS Ark Royal 4. I had foolishly gone to Dartmouth under the impression I might become a naval aviator. It was the year 1975 when they decided that they didn't need naval aviators. They had enough redundant Australians and whatever. Anyway, long story. Wanted me to be a submariner. I wanted to have a suntan girlfriends and not be irradiated. So I decided that that wasn't for me. So I was sort of looking around for a career, and I thought, well, I quite like airplanes. I quite like ships. I quite like writing. So I wrote to Eric and said, and by the way, I never called him Winkle. It was very clear from day one he was Eric. You know, the Navy might call him Winkle. We might call him Winkle today. It's Winkle on the cover, but I never called him Winkle. I wrote to him and said, I was some technical questions about flying off carriers, and he said, well, rather than write you a long reply, he actually called me and said, come to lunch. And we just hit it off. Our lunch went on into tea and then dinner, and from then on we were great friends, which was really nice for me because I was just starting out. I eventually went and flew in the army and flew helicopters and a few fixed wing, and that was Eric was just brilliant all the way along. So a bit of a mentor to me. I had huge affection for the man, and so researching and writing the book was a huge labor of love. And what I think is particularly interesting is it did take me 6 years, and there are about 4 or 5 good reasons. COVID sort of comes into it a bit, but also anyone who's read Wings on My Sleeve, don't try and compare that with my biography of Winkle, because what I did discover was Wings on My Sleeve was ghostwritten by the Admiralty, by Kenneth Pullman. And it doesn't stand the truth test, if you know what I mean. So do you want me to just sort of tell you a few little interesting things?
I guess.
Please do.
So, I've got a very quick one. The truth test, and I'm guessing the key factor, he definitely flew as many types as he flew, didn't he?
Okay. Yeah. So from our perspective as aviators, he flew 487 types. In one of the books, it says 490, but we've done a bit of... I used to be chair of the Aeronautical Aeronautical Heritage Specialist Group in the Royal Aeronautical Society. I'm a fellow. And we did a pretty good forensic test of the aircraft, and we worked out 487 is about right. It could be 485. It depends where you put the tipsy nipper and things like that in the equation, or the tipsy 2, which I think is the nipper. Anyway, the most important thing is 2,407 deck landings, absolutely. 2,271 launches, absolutely. First jet, first turboprop, first tricycle, first twin-engined aircraft on a deck, first turboprop on a deck, the Derwent Meteor. So lots of records, all of which absolutely spot on. But the key to this, and you know, the reason it took so long was it's a bit like when you write a biography. It's a bit like doing. And this is, by the way, book 79. I don't know why Wikipedia think I've written 40. They're all up there. But the first thing you do is like a cold case. You do your timeline, and then you put your evidence onto your timeline. So I started at 1919 because he always said he was born in 1919. And I got his S206, his service record, from the Navy, and it's fab. It's absolutely brilliant. The first thing it says is born 1920 London. Oh, hang on a minute. You said he was a Scotsman, so he's a Cockney. But he did spend all his formative years from the age of about 2 months in Scotland. So I reckon he's a Scot. I think he deserves the Great Scot accolade. But then I thought, well, I need to actually look at everything now. And his family were very helpful. They sent me a certified copy of the birth certificate. And I looked at it and I thought, this is very smudged, and there are, food stains, just in important things like dates. So I sent a scanned copy to Alloa, to the Chief Registrar in Scotland. She came back to me in about 30 minutes on an email and said, well, we've got 25 amendments and forgeries, basically, in the birth certificate so far. We're still looking. But by the way, it's an English birth certificate, and it's signed by the Chief Registrar, a title they don't have in Scotland, in Hackney. And then research goes on from there. So there's a lot of myth building there. I reckon it's not in the book, but subsequently to the book going to press, I reckon it's all to do with rugby. Eric was a brilliant fly half. He played for his school, the Royal High School in Edinburgh. And he'd been selected to play international under 16 or under 17. We don't quite know which yet, for Scotland. And to do that, you have to be born in Scotland in the 1930s. So, hence, out came the India rubber, and very carefully writing in. But of course, the other thing was the social stigma of being an abandoned child, no father's name, just a mother called Dorothy something, put on a train at about 6 weeks old, chartered by the National Child Adoption Agency, NCAA, up to Waverley Station in Edinburgh, because that's where there were no laws on adoption in Scotland. So all abandoned children in London were put on trains and sent to Scotland. And he fell into the hands of a lovely couple, Robert and Euphemia Brown, who couldn't have children. Euphemia couldn't have children. And they really looked after him, and they nurtured him. He won a scholarship to the Royal High School and then a scholarship to Edinburgh University, and a private pilot scholarship down at Maidstone at Westmoreland in the Maidstone School of Flying. So his father dead keen on aviation, and there's a lot of stories there. Eric sort of manufactured his father's fighter race Royal Flying Corps bit. Not really. There. So there's all that stuff. Does it take away from all his records? Yeah, of course it doesn't. He did all his records. I mean, what a fantastic handling test pilot he was. I mean, just the most amazing. He did that through concentration and through being accurate all the time. First thing he told me when I started flying with the Army was always make sure you have two means of escape out of the aircraft, and memorize your numbers. Don't do this Air Force thing of using a checklist. Memorize your checklist so you know exactly what you're doing all the time. And that's very much the Army training, because when you learn to fly a helicopter, you've got two hands quite busy, and you don't have room to do a checklist. So that was all important. It's your approach speed, your landing speed, your takeoff speed, not so important because the airplane tends to want to fly. Stall speed, really important, and your V&E. If you've got those, then you can go and fly anything. And as he demonstrated by climbing into Messerschmitt 109s, 110s, 262s, 163s, you name them, 410.
It's definitely true, is it, that when he flew the ME-163, the rocket plane, did the Germans make him sign a disclaimer because he wanted to try it live, didn't he?
No, that's a bit of there is no proof to that. The flight was unauthorized. So I've got quite a bit. Actually, I've got a whole chapter on the comet, as I call it, in the book, because it just is a fundamentally important aeroplane in that race to break the sound barrier. And it wasn't until about 2009-10 that he admitted that he'd flown the aircraft under power, and at RAF Wittering, far enough away from Farnborough that nobody would find out when he crashed. And there's a great Michael Turner painting of it, which I think I've got in the book. Penguin were great as a publisher because it's a 500-word book. It's thick. We took 30,000 words out, and we put a lot of the facts back in 100 pictures in the book. So it's pretty complete. There are a couple of small errors that annoy me that I missed, but the fundamentals are there. And the fundamental for me is Eric Brown went from a lost boy, a foundling, born and discarded by his mother, to being the most famous. Well, the lawyers said we could only say that he was Britain's greatest pilot because the Americans might get upset. I think he's the world's greatest pilot. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt at all. The aircraft he flew, and there's an appendix in the back with those. I've also found some notes of his favorite 10 and his least favorite 10, which and they're pretty much as you might expect. The aircraft he didn't particularly like. Interesting.
Paul.
Yeah.
We're having, after we do the interview, we have Fantasy Hangar, where we're going to pick aircraft from Winkle's great career, and I think it's best if that list of top 10 favourite aircraft is left until afterwards.
Yeah. I can go on forever about Winkle, as you can tell.
Let me ask you a quick question then, or maybe a long question. I don't know. I haven't read the book yet. I will read the book.
Please do buy the book. Available all good booksellers.
I will buy the book. Available all good booksellers, and there's even a link for it. There you go. Someone's put the link up there. Thank you very much.
Someone's already bought it.
Excellent.
Because it's #1 Amazon non-fiction, and it's number 22 of all books in the world at the moment.
Which is amazing, isn't it? Amazing. And after tonight, it'll probably be number 22.
Well, I sincerely hope it'll be more than that. And I'm talking at the Chalk Valley History Festival and a few other places. So keep the momentum up. It's been reviewed in the Telegraph, 5-star. It's going to be a piece in the Daily Express next week. I'm trying to keep the momentum going.
Oh, fantastic!
Sorry, you're going to ask me a question.
Somebody's going to ask you a question, but we got plenty of time. Did he have any regrets to aircraft that he really wanted to fly, but for one reason or another, he never managed to get in them?
Thank you for that cue. That's really good. Yes, indeed. I'm just thumbing through to find now.
I'm guessing it wasn't a nose wheel maul.
There are lots of things that he basically gave up flying in 1970 once he left the Navy. I mean, the sad thing is his very last military flight as pilot in control had an engine failure in a Whirlwind 7 and crashed, which we have lots of pictures of because there was a press photographer on board. It was in a storm up in Scotland. I've got in here page 456 actually. The two that got away. So if I could put this in context, when he met Neil Armstrong in 1971, they had a love-in. And they had a real love-in. When it came to this thing of what was it like to fly to the moon, and Neil Armstrong basically said, "Well, I didn't. Some geek in Louisville, Kentucky, or whatever, did a computer program, and that went up." And Eric said, "Okay, I don't want to be an astronaut then." He was a bit old to do that by then. But he didn't realize was that Neil Armstrong had been pushing NASA to get Eric to fly the X-15, and that he wanted. Neil Armstrong had followed Winkle's career, Eric's career, from the time he was at Patuxent River in the 50s when he trained Al Shepard and people like that in deck landings. He thought, this is the guy. This is the guy who finds out what goes wrong, and stays with the aircraft and deals with it. With the X-15, this would be really useful. And the Americans got quite a way down the route to say, well, we can do this. You just have to change nationality. To Winkle, that was like saying you have to cut both your legs and both your arms off. So a proud Scot, but a unionist. He loved the United Kingdom. A monarchist, a Brexiteer. I have to tell you. I mean, 2016, the day before he died, part of the instructions he gave me, which were go through my phone book, call up the people that I promised I'd go and speak, tell them I won't be able to go and speak for a couple of weeks, and vote Brexit and make sure that those idiots in Scotland stay in the Union. Right at the end, he was still very much in control of his faculties. So X-15 got away, and actually SR-71. I think he would have really loved to have flown that. But who wouldn't? Quite frankly, 80,000 feet or whatever it is. Who wouldn't? So they're in the book there. So Dave, you probably turned to it already, but. Those are the two that got away. But just about everything else. I mean, somebody just flashed up. Was it a Luscombe he wanted to fly? Why would you want to fly a Luscombe? I mean,
well, you see,
just asking. It wasn't. That was rhetorical in a way. Did he fly a Luscombe? Yeah. Do you know he flew? So it goes LTV Crusader, Luton Miner, and then Macklin. No, it didn't fly a Luscombe.
Oh, it's another one that got away.
Yeah, he not quite in the same league as X-15, perhaps.
But Paul, I mean, I'm reading through the book. It's clear that Eric had a real disregard for authority at times and a real streak of recklessness.
Well, I don't think reckless. I mean, unauthorized aerobatics when you've only got 160 hours. I don't think that's necessarily. So one of the stories which is alluded to in the book, but isn't there, but it might be in the future, is when he was based at places like Machrihanish in Scotland. His fiancée and then his wife. Lynn was still in Belfast. She was the forces' sweetheart on the light program in Northern Ireland. She used to do these sing songs for Irish soldiers overseas. He used to go and see her, normally in a swordfish, and he'd climb into the swordfish at sort of about this time of night and fly to Ireland and have dinner, spend the night with Lynn, fly back again, which worked perfectly until the day that there was fog both at Sydenham, now I think George Best International, and Machrihanish. And it didn't get back until about 10 in the morning. And there were a bunch of people with naval police written on the side asking where he'd gone. It wasn't the only time. So the great thing about getting his 206 is you've got everything there. He did cause displeasure to their lordships, i.e. the admirals, by X, Y, Z. He is has 3 months seniority taken off him, fined, not allowed to claim. He was really upset. He wasn't allowed to claim salvage or war booty or whatever, prize money. That's the word. So when he went to Germany and got all the 262 and the Arades and all those, he couldn't actually claim them as prize money, which, as a naval pilot, he was actually entitled to had he been a regular, but he was a reservist.
So when he first started flying from aircraft carriers, I didn't notice till I read your book, the British had a lot of converted merchant ships with a kind of a deck, aircraft landing deck put on them, welded on them, presumably.
Yeah, I was listening earlier, and Clench Common and whatever, that's quite long actually compared to HMS Audacity. So you imagine in the prologue, I talk about he was the air warfare instructor on the squadron, and he got it wrong with his first approach onto a Condor and approached at the front where they happened to have, I think, 2 23mm cannon or whatever, and he got really badly shot up. He kept part of the medically kept and not intentionally, but he had it in his pallet. He had still had the shrapnel from that. They couldn't take it out without major complications. And there was a piece in his jaw as well, which every now and then would sort of pop up, and he had to have a bit more broken off, which just did not worry him in the slightest. He just took it in stride. He moaned a bit about it. He could actually swear. And he comes back from this engagement with the Condor. He's got blood everywhere, one eye closed through shrapnel wounds. And the ship is moving 60 feet, and it's a 380-foot carrier. I think that's right. Somebody will tell me off in a minute if it's not right. And he takes the first wire. And the captain, McKendrick, who was a naval aviator of great skill in the 20s and 30s, goes, "We cannot waste this man in air-to-air combat. This guy is absolutely test pilot material. We've got to get him posted ashore." It took about 4 months in the sinking of Audacity, and an opportunity to go and do some testing at Farnborough while he was on his wedding leave, which he did. He just sort of got in an aeroplane, Abbottsinch, and flew to Farnborough because that was a lot more important than being with Lynn. He used to complain about that quite a lot, being abandoned for, she said, for most of their marriage, and until he retired from the Navy. But he without doubt was a natural pilot. I mean, there are pilots that are natural. I work quite hard at my flying. I still fly a little Cessna around out of Netheravon, and I have been known to do some amazingly good landings. I've been known to do some really quite exciting arrivals. I don't think Eric ever did any of those, but he did do some, interesting things like Tempest catching fire, or the Tempest catching fire, and trying to decide whether he should try and get the aircraft down and bailing out, then bailing out, and landing in a duck pond and facing a bull, or there are things like that I think are really quite amazing, or crashing inverted into a reservoir in Fife whilst practicing for the Prime Minister's visit, and he sort of doesn't panic. The big thing he said to me was, what kills you is going to be panic. So when the Wildcat, or the Martlet, as we called it then, went in inverted, he knew it had flotation bags on the wings. He knew the cockpit would be out of the water, so don't panic. Don't throw back the canopy and try and get out and struggle and whatever. Wait, let it settle, then get out. And again, he'd broken his nose. He broke his nose so many times. Initially, Martlets, American airplanes, I don't know if you've all done flying, I'm sure. Driven Identity and Soul Aviation, yeah, I guess. I'll come back to Richard's comment as well in a minute, if I may. But the key to him was not panicking, knowing what you were doing, and have confidence in yourself. So if you do land in inverters, let in the water, let it settle, then come out. But he broke his nose. He kept breaking his nose because, that's what I was starting to say, American airplanes only had lap straps. I mean, I've flown Cessnas in the States that only have a lap strap. I don't understand the mentality. I've driven cars with only lap straps in the States as well. And you need to have that full harness, particularly in a fighter aircraft, particularly in a naval aircraft, particularly if you're going to ditch. So that was a retrofit they did. Can I answer Richard's Kennedy's question there? Yeah. Did he have a passion for flying, or was it driven by trying to identify and resolve engineering traits? It wasn't an engineer. Actually didn't have a degree because he left to go fight a war in the end of the second semester. So he'd only been 2 years reading modern languages, French and German, with a bit of ancient Greek. No, he had a passion for flying, and his father, I think, gave him that. Used to buy. His father had a sweetie shop in Galashiels, which was also a news agent, and so they always had flying magazines. And he says, I think it's still in the book. Taking 30,000 words out of a book is pretty hard, keeping the important things in. But somebody had given him The Life of Nelson as a school prize, and he rather liked the idea of the Navy because he thought that was definitely the place to go. There were a lot of Scots in the Navy, etc. And he rather liked the whole naval thing. But the flying bit, that's what took him to Germany before the war. I mean, he adored what Germany was doing in aviation. Every month, it seemed, there was a new German airplane. The Dornier Pencil, the BF-109, whatever. And of course, for a long time, they were all pretended to be passenger airplanes and mail airplanes. He really loved that. So Richard, I think what he really loved doing was flying, and he found he wanted to be a fighter pilot. Came out 7th on his course. So the top 15, I think it was, went to be fighter pilots, of whom only about 3 survived the war, which is a lot better off than some of the torpedo bomber pilots in Swordfish and Albacores. But he loved flying, and he just was a natural pilot. He had a brain, though, that meant he could pick up engineering. So off he goes and does engineering stuff. Remarkable. Winkle Brown in the Fleet Air Arm is Marmite. There are still people who hate him. There are still people who love him. I'm in the love him place. I've suffered the lash of his tongue when I've got something wrong and been impertinent or been young or been an army pilot or something ridiculous like that. But to me, as a character, he's absolutely amazing. And what I wanted to do with this book was do him, not the airplanes. So you won't, there's some airplanes that I haven't mentioned in the book, and I don't have to because there are his Wings of the Luftwaffe and Wings of the Wild and Wonderful or whatever it is. Cover the airplanes, pressing buttons and whatever. This is about him. This is about the bloke. How do you go from being found on Waverley Station on a cold February day to becoming a household name that we are discussing here? And the book is reviewed in the Times. It's been reviewed in America. It's being reviewed in Germany. People are interested in him, and they're interested in him, the person.
Fantastic.
Can I get a signed copy? Of course, you can get a signed copy. I'll tell you what I have got actually. Can I do a quick commercial, guys? Can I just say I've got book plates that I can sign and send them to you. So if you're not going to see me at Chalk Valley History Festival, Duxford, or Shuttleworth, or whatever, very happy to do that. The easiest thing to do, I think you can find my address online. I think I'm a pretty public person.
Mate, how about we get together a post? Maybe Dave can put a post together on Flyer, and we can say anyone who's after a copy, that post will point them in your direction.
Brilliant, and I'll send you the sort of photo of the book plate as well, Dave. If that works.
That's great. Yeah,
we can do that later. These book plates are becoming the big thing because I've got people in Australia written to me and saying, I've just got the book. Amazon's delivered in Australia. Want to have it signed. How can I do that? Well, this allows me to sign in ink, and all you do is stick it into the book.
Brilliant.
There's even some very bright people, Aviation Bookshop in Tunbridge Wells, who have got some original Eric Brown signatures that they're putting into copies of the book as well. So it's this. I hope this is going to go on for a while. That people are going to be this interested in Eric and and all he achieved for aviation safety, because after he left the Navy, deeply involved in helicopter safety in the North Sea. We owe him a lot for that, or people who had worked in the North Sea do. But his contribution to aviation is immense. I don't think anyone. He was in the the 20th century, that part of the 20th century, 1940 to 1970, when you could make major contributions. You can't do it today. He got really frustrated in the end in the 60s when he wanted to go and fly the Buccaneer, and was told, "Yeah, you can do the course at 6 months." Well, who said I had to do that? Well, you did actually, Captain Brown. It's in your Part 1 orders. Well, I was the chief naval pilot. Yeah, but you can't go against your own orders, and lots of things like that. I mean, some of the old and bold of the Fleet Air Arm, who are wonderful people, then down at Yeovilton. We've had a session. We're having another session down there. They're all full of stories. Not all of them are good, I have to say. He went from being lost boy to martinet to national treasure. One of the wonderful things that he did was answer every single letter. I've got them all the letters and all his answers. Also took a cup and coffee, typed them all out. So there's a whole set from a war gamer in America who wanted to know. So what would it be like having Vampire versus ME-262 in a combat, or how would the ME-262 have survived against the Sabre, and things like that? And Eric painstakingly writes the response. And there's a young lad down in Somerset, Eakin, who has wrote to him, and he wrote back. I mean, he wrote back to everybody, and he and Eakin had this really interesting relationship going on, where Eakin was saying, "So what shall I do to become a test pilot?" And Eric, you need maths and physics, and keep physically fit. Test pilots had to be really fit. I've got all the correspondence. It's lovely. I mean, I could probably do a book of Eric's correspondence. But the other thing, I mean, he did was any little group. The Bishop's Waltham Aviation Group in Hampshire. He was their patron. He came to speak. They said, "Will you be our patron?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely, of course I will." And they are 60 strong. And then they decided when Eric died in 2016 that as I was writing the biography, that I should now be the patron. So I'm now the patron of the Bishop's Waltham Aviation Group. In Eric's name, in effect. And I do an Eric, a Winkle Brown talk every year to them, a different bit, and Winkle and the German jets or whatever.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, we've got a section called Fancy Hangar coming up, where we're going to pick our favourite aeroplanes from the whole list that Winkle flew. Perhaps you can hang around and we'll run through it really quickly, and you can then judge our choices based on your list of his top 10.
Yeah, delighted to.
We can probably do it in this layout, can't we?
So. Yeah, let's do that. So we'll just jump straight into Fancy Hangar. So so basically, anything in Winkle's list we decided was up for grabs for our own Fancy Hangar. So Dave, why don't you go first?
Okay, right. Well, I've chosen McDonnell Douglas Phantom F4, which Winkle, actually Eric, was introduced to the Royal Navy to have aboard the Ark Royal. I mean, it's a large fighter with a top speed of over Mach 2.2 in the later versions, and it had the motto amongst the crews, "Speed is life." This thing had a rate of climb of 41,300 feet per minute. Yes, please.
It's bonkers, isn't it? It's number 10. Yep. It's number 10 in his list. Eric wrote the requirement for it when he was Deputy Director of Naval Aviation in the Admiralty, and in his logbook there is the very simple 2-word acknowledgement: hot ship. Good choice.
Very good. Johnny, what did you pick?
So I have gone for the DO 335.
Oh, yeah.
Because, lots of people go, "Oh, it's not a tail dragger," but it doesn't need to be. It just looks incredible. It's a fascinating concept. And weirdly, I'm of the generation where I get introduced to these things through video games. So this was how it first came into my life in one of the early combat flight simulators. So it was this intriguing push-pull, fast machine, and I think it just looks like an awesome thing to fly. So,
guys, have you got a klaxon? Have you got a?
No.
This is number 7 in his least favorite aeroplanes.
Wow.
So it was one of the few German aeroplanes that he privately, I put here, offered reservations. He actually said, he didn't swear. He used that sort of lovely 1930s, it's a jolly awful aeroplane and a killer. So it killed his boss at Farnborough.
Oh no!
Wow.
It crashed in at Cove. He didn't like it at all. In fact, he even got a German POW that he had recruited to fly it back from France, from Reims. It was found it in the hangar in Reims, back from Reims, Melville to Farnborough, because he wasn't going to fly across the channel in it. It was catch fire. Second engine, very nice, caught fire. So,
wow.
It's in the list. It's not on the right list, John.
It's in the wrong list.
In the wrong list. But at least it's in the list. It's not bad out of 400, is it?
Ian, what did you go for?
I went for the Lockheed P-80, just because I think it was the first US jet aircraft to see military service. It was. I think it just looks like looks to me like a jet aircraft should look. I was really impressed. During the war, it took 143 days from like zero to having a prototype flying, which was just bloody amazing.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous thing. And they bought this Brit engineer bought the Goblin engine over, said to the guys, that aluminium on the intake, that's looking a bit thin, and they went, no, it'll be fine, with a better accent than that, undoubtedly. Went to full throttle and it ingested all of the aluminium and wrecked the engine. Get another one. So there you go. That's my choice for my fantasy hangar.
You're a great choice. Sadly, not in the list. Neither is the T-33, of course. I quite like the T-33 because I just think the second bigger canopy looks really good. And a million years ago, when I was at school, some American guy started the Small Air Forces Clearinghouse, and I was the British representative at age, 15 or something. And I specialized in collecting photographs of T-33s, because in the silver color scheme, and particularly the Canadian ones, just look fantastic. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. It looks lovely. Sorry it's not in the list.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, that just leaves me, and I think I might be on to a winner here because I picked the de Havilland Sea Hornet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you read the book, haven't you?
No, I haven't. I do. I know that Winkle said about it. He said the view from the cockpit, positioned right forward in the nose, he said was truly magnificent. It was easy to taxi, powerful brakes. Takeoff was remarkable. Climb rate was 4,000 feet a minute. And he said, for aerobatics, it's absolute bliss. An excess of power. Maneuvers in the vertical plane can only be described as rocket-like. And he even went as far as going, even with one propeller feathered, the Hornet could loop with the best single-engine fighter. He said, aerodynamic cleanliness was such I delighted in demonstrated by diving with both engines at full bore and then feathering both props before pulling up into a loop. He said it's second to none for harmony of control, performance characteristics, and for perhaps most importantly, inspiring confidence in its pilot. So
number one, you're absolutely spot on. He loved it. Whenever asked, it was Sea Hornet. And there was a famous time when he was in 15th Carrier Group, and he was actually senior pilot of 802 with Sea Furies. A guy called Spiv Leahy was senior pilot of the Sea Hornet Squadron, and I think it was Venerable, and I can't remember the squadron number off the top of my head. And they used to do these things. The Sea Hornet could go higher than the Sea Fury, so they would sit up and watch Eric's frustration. The Sea Fury is trying to get up there and then dropping away.
Well, I think there's a you probably.
I think we've done well. Can I tell you what out of this list what the one that I particularly like?
Yes. Yeah.
It's actually the number 2, and it's not a very effective aeroplane, but it's the Messerschmitt 262. I just think Eric said, the first operational jet aircraft had a special place in his heart. He was probably the first Allied pilot to fly it, and he relished the swept-back wings. Didn't relish the engines. I think, what did he call it? The best aircraft of the Second World War, other than the engines, or something like that. And the reason I bring it up is on the 12th of July, the Germans are bringing a 262 replica across. It'll be at Riyadh. It'll be at other places as well. And I'm hoping to be up somewhere over Beachy Head to greet it in, rather hoping in the back of a T6 or something. But to me, this German jet, this first generation German jet, it just led the way. It was so far in advance of anything we had. And Eric, I think Eric, had they had a decent engine, I think Eric would have made it number 1, but it's his number 2.
Yeah.
So I just love the 262. Where I'm sure Flyer, if we haven't missed the deadline for the next issue, which we probably have, because I know you work so far in advance, but your website might cover it. But hopefully you'll hear about it. It's the 12th of July, and it's going to come to Boscombe Down. So plenty of places on the A303 to stand and watch it come in. And I think that would be absolutely amazing to see that aircraft. And then at Riyadh. And, that will be the star of the show.
Oh, good. Well, just looking through the comments very quickly, Jonathan Smith says, Johnny wins. Linda Griffith says, big loser, Simon. Aviator Steve says, Paul is one of the best guests on possibly the best subject. Richard Kennedy says, looks like Eric gets to pick the winning choice from Beyond the Grave tonight. What else have we got? Dave's winning so far. F4 Phantom, Dave's a winner. Ed won't waste this. What else? Nice choice.
You've got some really good loyal supporters there, haven't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Ed wins.
Sea Mosquito. Did I just see Sea Mosquito?
Yes.
Can I just say that because I think that's interesting. The Sea Mosquito. The problem with so Eric tested the Mosquito. It wasn't technically a Sea Mosquito, and the problem there was the propellers both going around the same way, which meant it would drift towards the island superstructure. And the only way to get it onto Indefatigable, the carrier he did the first landing on, was to make sure that he lined up the starboard wheel on the center line, which meant he had 4 feet from the left-hand side of the deck and the Oggin. And all the marshals of Cambridge did all the work to strengthen the back of the fuselage. But they said, just be careful. And of course, on the 8th deck landing, the Mosquito carried on down the deck and the tail stayed where it was. And he said, that wasn't, I don't count that in my 23 really, hairy moments. That wasn't a hairy moment.
Fantastic. Erotique says, actually, Winkle wins.
Winkle wins, yeah.
Yeah, agree. Excellent.
Unfortunately, we are now nearly 8 minutes over time, so we could go on forever and ever and ever. But it's been an absolute honour and just a fantastic interview. I think we're going to go and edit that and repost that several times in several places. So fantastic book, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to reading it. There's a couple of people who've already bought the book. A couple more people who bought the audio book.
The audio book's worth it. It's because well, first of all, you don't hear that much of me in it. It's read by a professional, but it's the way to, you've got traveling to an air show. Listen to Winkle's life.
Yeah. Fantastic. So on that basis, we've got one item that we got left to get through, which is just Dave. In fact, Dave, do you want to just quickly run through the what's going on this weekend?
It's another busy weekend. Friday to Sunday, there's Wings and Wheels flying at St Michael's. Saturday, busy day. LAA Devon Strut flying at Faraway Common. Welcome to all, not just LAAers. Saturday, the Kilkeel flying, that's in Ireland. The Best of Britain Evening Air Show at Shuttleworth. The Vintage Piper flying at Wickenby. Over Saturday and Sunday, there's the Air Britain flying at White Waltham. Next week, during the week, Wednesday and Thursday, the de Havilland Moth Club are having their Vintage Air Tour, which will be stopping at various places around the UK.
Fantastic.
That's it.
On that note, I think it remains just to say thank you once again, Paul. Thank you, team. Thank you, everyone for watching. Thank you for people who are going to be watching this in catch-up over the next however many weeks, months and years. We look forward. We need to get you back onto your when you publish your book of letters, and there's a whole load of other questions that we never got around to asking there as well. So again, thank you very much, and have a great season of airshow stuff.
Yeah, fly safely, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.